they didn't have a choice, and sometimes there was no family there to make that choice for them. And I made it for them.
Take all that mess, and he was going to ask him to leave. I just really felt I knew something was wrong, but I just couldn't figure out what it could be.
Beyond quiet charm and polite smiles lies a disturbing truth. Some killers don't just kill. They wear their guilt like it doesn't exist. From Gary Ray Bowles' cold-blooded confessions to Velma Barfield's unnerving calmness, these criminals didn't just shock the world with their crimes. They stunned us with how little they cared. Let's begin.
I don't know, I felt all right, you know. There's not really a way to describe it, you know, it's just, I guess, relief.
Gary Ray Bowles, known for the brutal killing spree of multiple women in the 1980s, was convicted of 2 killings. He was sentenced to death, but died in prison before his execution. In the mid-90s, a man known as the I-95 Killer was on a silent rampage. His name, Gary Ray Bowles, a serial killer who targeted and killed 6 men across 6 different states in just 8 months. But what truly shocked people wasn't just the mercilessness of the killing. It was the shocking, disrespectful things he said during interviews that followed his arrest. Gary Bowles faced many challenges in his early life. Born in Virginia and raised in West Virginia, he grew up without a stable home environment. His father passed away before he was born, and his stepfather was abusive. By the age of 13, Gary had experienced enough hardship that he ran away from home. He ended up homeless, struggling to survive, and turned to various ways to make money. Over time, his resentment and pain grew, leading to destructive decisions later in his life. In 1994, police found the body of John Hardy Roberts in Daytona Beach, Florida. Gary had been staying with him. He beat and strangled John before stealing his credit cards and fleeing. When police investigated, they found Gary's fingerprints and parole documents at the scene. That's when the manhunt began. One by one, more bodies started showing up across Maryland, Georgia, and Florida. Each case pointed back to Bowles. The FBI added him to their 10 most wanted list. Finally, on November 22, 1994, Gary Ray Bowles was arrested in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. His final victim was Walter J. Hinton, a man Gary killed by dropping a 40-pound stone on his head and then stuffing a towel down his throat. After being captured, Bowles confessed to all 6 killings. In his interview with police, Gary Bowles made troubling statements, expressing anger and blaming certain individuals for his struggles. He claimed that his life had been negatively impacted by a difficult personal experience and felt that this justified his actions. His reasoning revealed deep feelings of resentment, and he showed no remorse for his actions. In 1996, Gary pleaded guilty to Hinton's murder and was sentenced to death. He later admitted to killing the others as well. At first, the Florida Supreme Court reversed one of his death sentences due to prejudicial comments during the trial, but in 1999, he was resentenced to death. When questioned about his crimes, Gary Ray Bowles spoke with a flat, emotionless tone, describing the killings like they were errands. His cold demeanor offered a disturbing window into his mindset. During interviews, he explained how he lured victims under the guise of companionship before launching brutal attacks. The calm, matter-of-fact way he recounted these events revealed a chilling absence of empathy, providing investigators and psychologists with rare insight into the psyche of a remorseless killer. Our next case dives into the horror inside hospital walls, where a nurse took it upon himself to decide who lived and who died.
Do you consider yourself a sociopath?
Well, that's what most people consider me.
What do you think?
I'm just Donald Harvey.
He looked like any ordinary hospital worker, quiet, polite, and always on time. But behind that calm smile was a man who called himself the Angel of Death. Donald Harvey didn't just take lives, he calculated them. And when he spoke about his victims, it wasn't with regret. It was with eerie calm, as if he were talking about chores. Born in 1952 in Ohio, Donald appeared to be an ordinary person. However, beneath the surface, he was carrying a painful secret. After enduring a difficult childhood and struggling with his sense of self, he dropped out of school and moved between various jobs. Eventually, he began working in hospitals where he found a path that would tragically define his life. Harvey said he killed to ease suffering, but that was just the beginning. He used arsenic, cyanide, insulin, suffocation, even coat hangers, and did things that sounded more like horror movie plots than real life. His victims were mostly elderly cardiac patients, but he didn't stop there. He poisoned his boyfriend's father, and even his neighbors. For nearly 17 years, nobody suspected a thing, until one day in 1987, doctors found cyanide in a patient named John Powell. When police questioned Harvey, he confessed, but only to one killing at first. That changed quickly. His court-appointed lawyer knew they needed to act fast to avoid the death penalty, so Harvey made a deal. He confessed to everything if they took execution off the table. And what he revealed was shocking. At least 37 victims were confirmed, but Harvey claimed it could be over 70. Harvey claimed he was helping people by putting them out of their misery, but the truth was far darker. He openly admitted that many of the killings were driven by anger and a need for control, and at times he even enjoyed it. In one interview, he smirked while describing his methods, laughing as he spoke about the number of lives he had taken. His tone, his expressions, everything about him showed a complete lack of remorse. In 1987, Donald Harvey was sentenced to 28 life sentences. He spent the rest of his life behind bars at Toledo Correctional Institution, and even there, he couldn't escape judgment. In interviews, Harvey spoke casually, like he was chatting about the weather, not dozens of killings. His tone, his body language, it was eerie. He didn't just avoid apologizing, he bragged. When asked if he regretted it, he shrugged. He claimed he was helping people, but you could see the smugness on his face. It was one of the most disrespectful interviews ever seen from a serial killer. Harvey also explains in detail the methods, which included poisoning patients with substances, suffocating them, or tampering with their medical equipment. He described how he often acted alone, exploiting his position in the hospital to carry out the murders without immediate suspicion. Harvey's confessions were instrumental in helping authorities understand the extent of his crimes, leading to his conviction for multiple murders. For the families, the pain never faded. People trusted hospitals to heal, not to kill. It made your stomach turn. There was no apology, no regret, just a man who found power in taking lives and had the nerve to smile while talking about it. In 2017, after decades in prison, Harvey was beaten to death by a fellow inmate. A quiet end for a man who caused so much pain, but to many, not nearly enough justice for what he did. The next case reveals a cold-blooded serial killer, where women were targeted by a man who walked among us, hiding in plain sight.
What these women made me angry or pushed enough to do to make me hurt them?
Some criminals hide their evil behind charm. Some wear it like a badge. Lorenzo Jerome Gilliard Jr., known as the Kansas City Strangler, did just that. And when he was finally caught, his courtroom behavior and cold, disrespectful interview made it clear. This man had no remorse for the horror he caused. Born in 1950, Gilliard seemed like any ordinary boy growing up in Missouri. But beneath the surface, there was something dark. As a teen, he bullied smaller kids, skipped school, and failed to show any respect for rules. By the time he was young, he had a wife, a child, and a record. His early crimes involved assault and mistreatment, but again and again, he slipped through the system. Charges were dropped, witnesses changed stories, he apologized and walked free. But the horror didn't stop. Between 1977 and 1993, women started disappearing in Kansas City. Most were young, vulnerable, and many were intimate workers. Their bodies would later be found strangled, assaulted, and left like trash. For years, the cases went cold. No solid leads. No clear suspect. That changed in 2001. With new DNA technology, police revisited old cases. and what they found shocked them. A blood sample taken from Gilliard back in 1987 was a match for multiple killings. In 2004, Gilliard was finally arrested and charged with 12 counts of murder. He acted calm, cold, unshaken. Even as the evidence stacked against him, DNA, patterns, timelines, he denied everything. In court, prosecutors revealed how all his victims were strangled, left barefoot, assaulted, and dumped in isolated places. Still, Gilliard showed no emotion. His motive? It was never clear. Was it power? Control? Hate? Maybe he thought no one would care about the women he targeted. But what made it worse was his complete disrespect towards the victims, their families, and even the justice system. He was convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to life in prison with no parole.
You've never met her, you said?
I never met her. I don't know. I just truly don't know.
In interviews, he refused to admit guilt. He acted smug, smirking at questions. When asked about the DNA evidence, he shrugged it off. Not once did he apologize. Not once did he express regret. Even when asked about his victims, Gilliard coldly claimed, "I don't know anything about them." When questioned about his attorney, he lied, saying he didn't know who that was either. Eventually, mid-interview, he abruptly stood up and walked out, ending the conversation saying, "Have a good day, thank you." Gilliard looked the camera dead in the eye and claimed he was innocent. When pressed further, he smirked and said, "People want to believe what they want. I'm just living." Imagine hearing that if you were a mother, a sister, or a daughter of one of his victims. The pain, the disrespect, it's chilling. Gilliard didn't just kill, he erased lives, and then acted like he didn't care. Lorenzo Gilliard was condemned not only for the cruelty of his crimes, but for the heartless, arrogant way he responded after being caught. Our next case is straight from a nightmare, where a man kidnapped, mistreated, and killed his victims in unspeakable ways. In Kansas City, Missouri, during the mid-1980s, a quiet man named Robert Berdella appeared to live a normal life. He owned a local shop and was seen by many as a helpful neighbor. But beneath the surface, he was hiding a terrifying secret. Known later as the Kansas City Butcher and the Collector, Berdella was leading a double life that shocked the entire community. What made Berdella so disturbing wasn't just what he did, it was how carefully he hid it. He targeted young men, lured them into his home, and kept them there against their will. His house on 4315 Charlotte Street became the center of a chilling story. While neighbors went about their daily lives, something unimaginable was happening just next door. The truth came to light in 1988 when a man named Chris Bryson managed to escape from Berdella's house. He ran for help, and soon the police arrived. Inside the home, investigators uncovered a mountain of evidence that left them stunned. Journals, photographs, and physical evidence told a story that Berdella had kept hidden for years. When questioned, Berdella spoke without emotion. He talked about his actions as if they were everyday events. He even admitted that his inspiration came from a fictional movie character. His calm explanations made the case even more chilling for investigators. When asked about why he did what he did, Berdella said it was about power and control. He wasn't after money or revenge. His actions came from a deep desire to dominate others, which he believed gave him a sense of importance. He had modeled his behavior after a disturbing film, blurring the lines between fiction and reality in the worst way. Instead of going to trial, Berdella chose to plead guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. He never expressed any remorse or gave apologies to the victims' families. He remained cold and distant until the very end.
The media has so biased my case, portraying me as being non-human.
Even in prison, Berdella avoided taking full responsibility. During interviews, he often acted dismissive and even blamed the media for exaggerating his actions. He refused to acknowledge the impact he had on so many lives, which only deepened the pain for the families affected. Robert called himself a sensitive citizen who just made mistakes, claiming the media made him out to be a villain. At his flea market booth, Bob's Bizarre Bazaar. He sold oddities, antiques, occult books, and even displayed skulls. During Kansas City's Final Four weekend, he placed 4 skulls in the window with a sign, the Final Four. He later scoffed at media rumors that he made the jewelry from his victims' bones, saying, "That's not true." For the victims' families, the pain was immeasurable. Their loved ones had been taken away from them in a way that was hard to comprehend. That was almost as painful as the crime itself. In 1992, Berdella passed away in prison from natural causes, but the trauma he left behind still echoes today as a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones no one suspects. Our next case is about pure evil, where a woman disguised as a sweet grandmother poisoned her loved ones without guilt.
Days of not knowing where you are or what you've done.
She was a grandmother, a churchgoer, a caretaker. She was a Southern grandma, but behind that soft voice and kind smile was a cold-blooded killer. Velma Barfield wasn't just a serial killer. She was the first woman executed in the U.S. after capital punishment returned in 1976. Velma was born in North Carolina in 1932. Her early life was painful. She claimed her father mistreated her, and her mother never stepped in. She married young, had 2 kids, and seemed like a normal housewife. But after a surgery and some chronic pain, her behavior changed. She became addicted to prescription substances, and eventually, something inside her snapped. Her first husband died in a mysterious house fire. Her second, dead within a year. Then her mother fell sick and passed after strange vomiting spells. Velma's employers began dying one after the other, always with the same symptoms: nausea, vomiting, and sudden death. Eventually, when her boyfriend Roland Taylor died, an autopsy revealed poison in his system. Velma was arrested, and when police started digging, her dark story began to unravel. She confessed to 6 killings, killing her mother, 2 employers, her boyfriend, and others by secretly poisoning their food or drinks. The real shock came during her interviews. Calm, polite, almost cheerful. She spoke about killings like she was reading a recipe. At one point, she smiled and said, "I just didn't want them to suffer anymore." Her motive? Mostly to cover up her forged checks and lies. Sometimes, it was just because the person became inconvenient. She claimed her substance addiction clouded her judgment, but that didn't explain the careful planning behind each poisoning. Velma was tried and convicted for just 1 killing, but everyone knew the number was higher. She spent 6 years on death row.
I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused so many people.
During her final interviews, she remained oddly at peace. She didn't cry, but even her last words were soft. "I'm sorry for the pain I've caused." She said substance use was what ultimately led her to prison, claiming it influenced her to commit those crimes. She also claimed to have found religion and began ministering to other inmates. While she said she grew closer to God behind bars, many believed it was just another mask she wore. How could someone so gentle-looking, so calm, commit such an evil act? Some saw her as a broken woman shaped by trauma. Others saw her as manipulative, using her appearance to hide her crimes. Either way, Velma Barfield's interviews remain among the most unsettling ever recorded because they remind us, evil doesn't always look the way you expect. The twisted stories of these killers shattered more than lives. They shattered our understanding of humanity itself. Their haunting interviews and cold confessions weren't just moments of evil. They were windows into minds untouched by remorse.